Hey everyone, Scott Proscia from M.Ed Athletics, one of the performance coaches there, and today I'm here to talk to you about training plans and really what makes up a training plan, an effective training plan throughout that athlete's annual training cycle. We pride ourselves on being an educational platform, so one of the things I want to do is I really want to talk you through the principles of training and then some of the different phases in the language that we use at M.Ed Athletics and the training plan source. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the principles of training. When we talk about the principles of training, these are some common themes that come up. Specificity. What is specificity? Specificity is doing specific things to get specific outcomes. So if I wanted to get big biceps, I'm not going to do squats, I'm going to do bicep curls. All right? So I'm going to try to do specific actions that are going to develop a specific adaptation within that person. So specificity. The next thing is overload and progression. The big thing that we, especially for our time-limited athlete, and that seems to be a limiter for a lot of our athletes, is that they're limited to a set amount of hours per week or a set amount of hours per day or a certain amount of days per week that they can work out. And often we run into a problem where they'll hit a stagnation point and they'll hit a plateau. And it's simply because they run out of hours. But how can we continue to progress and overload that system so that there'll be an adaptation? We can do this a lot of different ways. All right, so we can change the intensity of the workout, so we can use the same amount of time but make that workout harder. When I say harder, there's that's kind of tough to say. There's a lot of different ways to change the intensity of an exercise. We can increase the resistance. We can make them run up a hill, or we can make them cycle up a hill, or we can make them gear down on the trainer. We can add weight if we're strength training. But we can also decrease rest time. That also increases the intensity. We can change the height of the drill. If we have them doing some type of box jump or depth jump or something like that, we can change these different variables to create overload in the system. And then we have progression. So we need to consistently be building or we'll plateau out. So this can be changes in duration and volume, and people have to be okay with starting easy and feel like they're not getting much done, but that'll lead into talking a little bit later about our base phase. All right, so it's overload and progression, and then variability. All right, so variability is we want to prevent stagnation. I think this is just as much for the physiological components. I think we have a tendency to get bored, and if athletes feel, if my coach prescribed the same workout 2 weeks in a row, he must not be paying attention, he just threw that up. Well, maybe that's what you need, and we need to be okay with that more than anything. But we seem to have a problem with that invariability. But there's absolutely good reason to vary an exercise, vary stimulus to the system so that we get different responses. So often a coach is thinking a lot more things, and they're thinking of these things in microcycles and mesocycles. So what do I need right now in this moment, and where is their stress level heading into this workout? There'll be some variability in there. That leads us into our phases of training. And we have we usually break this into base, build, peak, taper, and our race phase. And these all have kind of separate durations. It's going to depend on how far we're out from our key event. Usually we plan these as A, B, C races. That's a lot of the common language that we use. But really we have 1 or 2 target events for the year, and we develop all our specificity around that target event. All right, so we'll have some people that, I really want to do a marathon before I sign up for an Ironman race. Well, that's perfectly fine. We still need to keep the specificity for that Ironman race because you have to run a marathon at the end of an Ironman. All right, so we still have to bike 112 miles and swim 2.4 miles. There's a lot of specificity there that we're not going to get just running a marathon training cycle first and then jumping into an Ironman build. We need to keep that specific and be thinking about that from the beginning. So that leads us into our base phase. And most of us are signing up for these races 1 year in advance, 6 months in advance. So this is really anywhere from 1 year to 20 weeks out. And that's a lot of time to be building your foundation, to be building your base. But our aerobic fitness is some of the most important things and elements that we consider during this base phase. And those are going to be our focus areas. So we're going to be building that foundation, building that base, building that skill set, and working on our neuromuscular efficiency during this time to really lay a good foundation so when we start increasing the duration, increasing the intensity, we're a well-tuned machine that's going to also be not be injury prone. That's another thing that we'll talk about later on down here, and why IREP Athletics and the training plan source plans are a little bit different, and will keep you performing at the top of your game, because an injured athlete doesn't get any training done. All right, so that leads us into the build. All right, the build is where we start revving the engine. All right, we actually shift gears. All right, and this is from 20 weeks out down to 12 weeks. All right, so we get about a 2-month block here. There's a 2-month block of time, and it's going to depend on our athletes, whether we're doing like 2 weeks up, 1 week down, 3 weeks up, 1 week down. And when we're down, that down week is usually a rest and test week, and we're really trying to build a platform and establish some fitness levels so that we can plan that next setup. But this build is where we start increasing intensity and increasing duration of those exercises, and we also start getting more specific. All right, these workouts start looking more and more like the race and the demands of the event that we have coming. All right, so that's our build. And now our peak. All right, the research shows that from 12 weeks to 3 weeks has the biggest influence on our performance of racing. All right, so this is the biggest predictor. We need to be on top of our game from 12 weeks out to 3 weeks out. This is going to have the most effect on our performance of our race. This needs to be the most specific part of our training heading into our key event. All right, this is where it's all going to happen. So these are race, what would we call it? We call them like race rehearsals. All right, we may be in our exact race setup. We may be wearing the equipment and wearing the uniform, wearing the equipment that we're going to do, having the shoes that we're going to be racing in, trying all of these things out, trying our race day nutrition, using what's on the course, practicing our nutrition schedule that our coach has set up for us. All right, practicing our pre-race breakfast, waking up at the same time. All of those things are going to start happening in this peak phase, and we're going to be refining our goals and refining our intensities, our paces, our power zones, our power targets. All of that's going to happen and be established in that peak phase. All right, so there's a lot happening in that peak phase, the most important time of the training cycle. All that build up, and then we go into a taper. Research really shows that an exponential taper seems to be very effective for a large amount of athletes. The longer the event, the shorter the taper. And that's weird. Somebody's like, wow, if I did more training for an Ironman than I did a half Ironman. Why would I taper less? Well, think about it as this. Our taper is really trading fitness for freshness. And it's a balance of those two things. So how much fitness are we willing to give up to come in fresh? And usually we call that form. All right, so fitness versus freshness, and we call that form. We find that point. The less fit somebody is, so the less somebody had a problem in their training cycle, maybe an injury popped up, maybe they had some complications at work that kind of took them out for a week, and their fitness kind of tanked a little bit. Well, unfortunately, their taper is going to be a little bit shorter, so they're not going to be fresh as a daisy coming in, but because that fitness is so important for the duration of the event. Counter, if we see for our sprint athletes or 5K athletes, 10K athletes, or something like a 50 meter, just a swimmer that's going to do a 50 meter freestyle sprint event, we find that a longer taper is actually more effective. And freshness is that much more important than fitness. All right, so that's our taper, and this is usually 3 weeks out up until the race, and then we head into our race. All right, race week. We're going to have some specific things, some administrative things that are going to happen during race week. We're going to have packet pickup usually. We're going to have to get our equipment ready. All those things are going to happen during the race week, and we also want to be feeling on top of our game. One of the things is during this, it's really mentally draining. A lot of people want to test their fitness. They'll try to squeeze in one last run or one last bike just to try things out and feel out the equipment and check out their legs that they have going on. And that is usually counterproductive. Anywhere in this taper or race phase, really we're just we're usually decreasing that volume and intensity. We're keeping the frequency of workouts the same and maybe slightly increasing that intensity just a little bit for some of these key workouts, but the big thing is coming in fresh. All right, and on race week, we find especially the run, very negative impacts on our performance. So actually running kind of has a negative influence as we get closer to the race. But we just want to keep things fresh. We want to keep that neuromuscular system stimulated, and we want to be mentally prepared and doing everything we can from a nutritional standpoint and a mental preparation standpoint through our visualization and going over our race rehearsal and our race plan during this race week so we can execute. Execution is huge. There's a lot of excitement around these events. We can really get worked up and sucked into that, and we need to make sure that we're mentally ready to execute the plan that we've practiced during the build and the peak. All right, a couple other things that our training plans usually include: strength and conditioning. This is huge throughout the entire, through the entire training cycle. During the base, we're heavy on this, as well as the build and the peak. It's included in all of our training plans. We encourage athletes to use these in all of their training plans all the way throughout. And in our customized athletes, they're using it all year long. All right. Even race week, we will see some workouts just to keep things primed. All right. So strength and conditioning is huge. We see that we mitigate risk of injury, and that we just have stronger athletes. We've seen athletes make leaps and bounds, and one of the biggest limiters is body composition. And increasing that lean body mass has been huge for working on that body composition limiter for our athletes. Prehab and injury management. All right, so this is you've had an injury in the past. We want to make sure that we don't get another injury, or we're injured. What do? Well, we have 2 certified athletic trainers on staff that we work in the sport. We teach exercise science and sports medicine full time. We have plans to get you back in action and get you back on the field, on the court, on the track, on the bike, or in the pool again. We have plans that are designed specifically to get you back in action as soon as possible, and plans to prevent this from happening again. All right, and then nutrition and rest. All right, we call this fueling. All right. If you have a medical issue, we want you going to your registered dietitian or your nutritionist, talking with your doctor about this. But if you just need some general fueling advice, we have fueling and rest plans built in to deal with some of your nutritional needs, and we work on helping you design a race day nutrition strategy depending on what they have on course, what the duration of your event is, and what some of the things that work well with you. All right, so that's our nutrition and rest plans. So overall, we are not just a cookie cutter program. We really want to help an athlete design the program that's going to be best suited for them and their performance goals. So this is the training plan source, IREP Athletics. This is our training plan overview.